Hello, my name is Melanie Siggs. I'm Director of Strategic Engagement for the Global Seafood Alliance, a consultant to the World Economic Forum, and Vice President of the Centre for Responsible Seafood. Thank you for joining me to take a look at the Sustainable Development Goals, global initiatives and sustainable seafood. How can we step up to help meet those goals and help drive those initiatives, and why would we? 21 years ago, when the Marine Stewardship Council, the Global Aquaculture Alliance and Google were all in nappies, and the Aquaculture Stewardship Council and Twitter weren't even a twinkle in someone's eyes, we were galloping headlong into the 21st century, convinced that the world's computers would all crash at midnight on New Year's Eve, and that would be the end of life as we knew it. Sustainable seafood was in its infancy, and private sector NGO partnerships were pretty much unheard of. And at the same time, the Millennium Development Goals were born through the United Nations with a 2015 agenda. They did actually include an ambition around biological fish stocks, but largely focused on health, poverty and education. And there was no mention of climate change. And here we are, nearly 22 years into that 21st century, and we have truly come a long way in terms of our understanding of issues for facing sustainable food production and climate change. Our collective work in sustainable seafood has leapt forward in terms of our understanding, our partnerships, awareness and action, even if we are sometimes frustrated at the speed of change or the seemingly illogical barriers, such as harmful subsidies or illegal and destructive fishing, and a lack of step change and investment to accelerate sustainable seafood. In part, it's due to its lack of identity as a critical food system. From the Millennium Development Goals, the UN went on to develop the arguably broader and more ambitious Sustainable Development Goals, and the 2030 Agenda was born. There was much more engagement, there is much more engagement of NGOs, of the private sector, and there are specific targets around ocean, land, climate change, sustainable consumption and production, all driving to end hunger and poverty while protecting the planet, and these underpin the UN objectives. Despite that drive to end hunger and poverty, the objectives around livelihoods, health and sustainable development, and given that some 3 billion people rely on wild and farmed fish for the bulk of their animal protein and micronutrients, seafood's role in helping ending hunger and poverty and achieving those objectives is very poorly represented. Perhaps part of the reason, as I mentioned, is because seafood is rarely seen as a core food system, or because so much of it is produced by small-scale producers with quiet voices. The SDGs give us a real opportunity to have sustainable seafood recognised as a truly valuable asset in realising those collective goals. Goals that governments, private sector, NGOs and academia can all get behind together to help end hunger, poverty, create decent work and livelihoods, to help mitigate climate change that's exacerbated by current and historical food systems. I'm actually going to change my terminology now, because the term aquatic foods is increasingly being adopted over seafood to better describe the food produced from different aquatic plants or species in different bodies of water. The combination of the SDGs and a number of global actions is giving volume to the aquatic foods narrative. I asked Manuel Baranje, Director of Fisheries and Aquaculture Division at the UN's FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, to help us understand how FAO are addressing these poverty and hunger goals. Manuel.
Hello, good morning. My name is Manuel Baranje. I'm the Director of the Fisheries and Aquaculture Division at the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. When talking about aquatic foods, many people focus on the past and the present. They mentioned the fact that aquaculture has been the fastest growing food production sector for the last 5 decades, or that aquatic foods provide the best combination of micronutrients to fight malnutrition. But I'd like to focus more on the future. And What I'm telling you is that unless we truly transform aquatic foods, it will be very difficult to end hunger and poverty by 2030, as the Sustainable Development Goals demand. And what does it mean to transform aquatic foods and their sectors? Well, in FAO, we have a plan, Blue Transformation, which has three very specific objectives. First, to truly expand aquaculture throughout the world, but particularly in food deficit regions such as Africa, a continent that only produces 2.5% of global aquaculture production today. Second, to transform fisheries management in places where sustainability is failing or is unknown. And that includes better and more equitable access to resources and the development of methods that work in data-limited and capacity-limited regions. And third, to innovate in the area of fish value chains that are some of the least developed in the food industries. If we work on these three elements, these three objectives, we can truly transform blue systems and ensure that we contribute to the ending of hunger and poverty. If successful, blue transformation will increase our per capita consumption of fish by the middle of the century by more than 25%. That will make a difference, and we hope it does. Rally behind blue transformation and work with FAO to achieve its goals. Thank you.
I hope you heard there Manuel's invitation to join FAO in their work. Hold that thought. Increased awareness of the urgent need to protect our ocean for the health of our entire planet, as well as the need to mitigate the impacts of our food systems, has led to a greater understanding of how sustainable aquatic foods can truly contribute to success of the SDGs. SDGs that aspire to create decent livelihoods, gender equity, address climate change, enable sustainable consumption, and so much more. And it's not just because we want it to or because we believe in aquatic foods, but for sound science-driven reasons. Aquatic foods have an incredible flexibility that's not enjoyed by many other food systems. So there is, if you like, something to suit everyone, all regions, different bodies of water, whether farmed in freshwater, whether fed or unfed, whether managed in restorative multi-trophic systems, whether offshore, nearshore, or even onshore enclosed systems. Or if those species are wild caught, but managed in sustainable ways where data is invested in because of its critical importance, it is understood and acted upon, where stocks and the people who depend upon them are healthy, where fishing methods are kind and adaptive, where fishing agreements benefit people and the ocean, where subsidies are repurposed for good. And let's not forget the flexibility of the products and foods stemming from these aquatic foods. Flexibility that should aim for greater efficiency through different products, and by products ensuring that all nutrients are captured and used. We actually have the science and technology to enable much of this, but not necessarily the investment and the systems. We can all adopt the framework of the SDGs into our work, whether as NGOs, private sector, as policymaker or academics. They give us a common reference point to drive towards. But there are other global initiatives that we can support as well. By ensuring that we raise our heads well above our parapets, we can work with purpose on many, many levels. The United Nations General Assembly has declared 2022 the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, known as IAFA. IAFA aims to raise awareness on the role of small-scale fisheries and aquaculture, to strengthen science policy interaction, to empower stakeholders to take action, to build new and strengthen existing partnerships. IAFA will take concrete action towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals as we enter the last decade of action to achieve that 2030 agenda. The objective of celebrating IAFA in 2022 is twofold: to focus world attention on that role that small-scale fishers, fish farmers and fish workers play in food security and nutrition, poverty eradication, and sustainable natural resource use, thereby increasing global understanding and action to support them. Some 2/3 of aquatic foods are produced by small-scale producers. And to enhance dialogue between different actors, and not least to strengthen small-scale producers to partner up with one another to make themselves seen, heard and included in policy and decision-making that shapes everyday lives, all the way from local community level up to international and global fora. If you haven't heard about the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, IAFA, head to Google now, or at least when I've finished. Supporting fisheries and aquaculture to give these small-scale producers a loud voice can make a massive difference to ensuring best practice is possible and enabled, and that meaningful, healthy lives are led. It will help embed aquatic foods as critical to food systems around the world, and that's going to lead to more integrated and enabling regulation, which can both nourish and empower. So part of our role as a community is to help make that happen for those small-scale producers, raising their voices and opportunity to ensure we share and invest, and to make sure practice in the water is sustainable, environmentally, ecologically, socially, economically. Around the world and global are terms we use to reference aquatic foods' far-reaching abilities. Indeed, aquatic foods are produced throughout the world in every continent. I asked Alice Rueza, WWF's Director for Africa, how aquatic foods could support success of the SDGs, not just in Africa, but more broadly, if they are recognised as critical food systems. Alice.
I think aquatic foods are an important part of our global food portfolio, not only in Africa, but also globally. Our population worldwide is growing, and there is a need to address nutrition security while recognizing the damage that climate has on food production. Here in Africa, we already know that 100 million Africans are likely affected by climate change, even though we only account for 4% of greenhouse gas emissions. Africa suffers disproportionately from climate change, from food insecurity, poverty, and displacement as a result of climate change. But this is why I love the framework and collective ambition of the SDGs. It's not ambition just for you and for me, but for us as a global community. We work together, reducing risk, increasing resilience, helping to enable meaningful and healthy lives. We need to use this collective framework to feed a growing population, ensure livelihoods, equity and investment, all the while protecting our precious shared planet. Now, aquatic foods, with their adaptability through different species, including aquatic plants and non-fed species, can help provide this kind of flexibility that gives greater resilience to withstand shocks, be those from climate, from pandemics, or others. That adaptability and resilience is critical to nutrition security. Aquatic foods from sustainable fishing or aquaculture can provide nutrition through protein, omega oils, and a host of micronutrients. These aquatic foods can also improve gender equality, because we know that women make up most of the workforce in agriculture, in processing, and in the aquaculture sectors. But if we embed aquatic foods better and more meaningful as critical food systems in national and global policies, we can help ensure better recognition and support for these women who are providing food, who are trading, and are often overlooked. Sustainable aquatic foods usually have lower carbon footprint than any other animal footprints, and as such, they can provide the protein and nutrition we need without additionally exacerbating climate change or reduce or biodiversity loss. I see immense opportunity for us to come together to support aquatic foods through fishing and aquaculture that can in turn help us achieve all the SDGs we agreed upon, including SDG 2 for no hunger, SDG 3 for good health and well-being, SDG 5 for gender equality, SDG 13 for climate change, SDG 14 for life below water, and SDG 15 for life on land. What we need to do is come together to create better integrated food policies that attract the finance, technology, and science needed to help us realize sustainable aquatic foods, be that wild or farmed.
So there you have it. Sustainably harvest aquatic foods provide an opportunity to improve human well-being by providing an affordable, local and culturally appropriate source of essential micronutrients and omega-3 fatty acids for many communities and populations that lack food security, while also lowering our carbon footprint. An opportunity for all of us to address hunger, poverty, livelihoods, health, gender, equity, our ocean, the land and climate change through those SDGs. And we've already have goals agreed and adopted across 193, yes, 193 countries. That is the SDGs. And there's more afoot. In September this year, global leaders at the UN Food Systems Summit recognised that aquatic foods for their first time, for their real potential to help realise many of those SDGs. It was noticed that a food system would be incomplete without aquatic foods, and it was listed as one of the 7 priority action areas by the scientific group. But we must continue to ensure that aquatic foods take up their place at the global and national dialogues on food systems, now that their many benefits are being better understood at all levels. Studies like the Blue Food Assessment, which synthesises scientific papers and outlines their implications for food systems, will share recommendations. Recommendations we can all share too. Our food system currently leaves 3 billion malnourished and will have to feed 10 billion by 2050. And we'll need to do that under the effects of climate change and the effects of our food systems, which to date have included deforestation and soil nutrient and erosion. Aquatic foods are ready and able to play an important role building a better food system for our future. And the Blue Food Assessment shows how we can benefit from the multitude of opportunities that exist. And to quote Jim Leap, one of the principal leaders of the Blue Food Assessment, with 9 fishing seasons left to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, the research shows that blue foods are one of the best solutions to the dual challenges of climate change and malnutrition that are rapidly accelerating around the world. So nearly 22 years on since the turn of the century, and arguably as our sustainable seafood movement comes of age, let's ensure that we step up to the challenge and opportunity. I have just brushed the surface while groups like FAO, World Bank, the Blue Food Assessment, Friends of Ocean Action and others are diving deeper, and individuals such as the wonderful Shakuntala Thilsted single-handedly are helping put aquatic foods firmly on the global food system map. Increasingly, private sector actors and NGOs are seeking to understand how their work better connects, but they're not always truly engaging with the SDGs. We could and we should dive into this subject more deeply for sure, but I think my time is up. And I can only hope that you might have been inspired to go and find your way to participate at this global and collective level. I wholly encourage you to really understand how our work and the role of aquatic foods can not only contribute to success of the SDGs, which is success for people and planet, but how they can also act as frameworks and reference points around which we can all collaborate and act without doubt for collective good. I encourage you to support the global opportunities of activities such as the International Year for Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, and to support the good work to have the UN Food Systems Summit recognise aquatic foods and to amplify their voice at the food system dialogues wherever they take place. In short, to seek out and take the opportunity before us such that aquatic foods have never before been so important, so critical, so that investment, the science, the integration, the enabling policies, the protection, the equity that results from our work is like honey in a beehive. I leave you with the words of Peter Thompson, UN Special Envoy for the Ocean, who has kindly recorded this message for us today. Thank you very much, Peter.
There's no question that sustainable aquatic foods support a wide range of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Just think about the eradication of hunger and poverty, the achievement of good health and well-being, and the required transformation of humanity's ways of production and consumption. But central to answering the question at hand are SDG 13, to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts, and SDG 14, to conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. There can be no healthy planet without success in implementation of SDGs 13 and 14. And you may have heard my mantra, no healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and the latter's health is measurably in decline. Reversing that decline is one of the great challenges confronting humanity. And of course, the pathway to success lies in a drastic curbing of the anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions that are the chief cause of the aforesaid decline. Sustainable aquatic foods are a flexible and highly nutritious source of sustenance that has one of the lowest carbon footprints of animal proteins. To be classed as sustainable, whether wild caught or farmed, aquatic foods must support a healthy ocean, lakes, and rivers. We must strive to ensure aquatic foods are appropriately caught and produced, to ensure efficient and ethical feed, encouraging non-fed farmed seafood, for example, and to eradicate illegal fishing and ecologically harmful fishing practices. Produced ethically and sustainably, aquatic foods help ensure a healthy ocean, healthy lakes and rivers, and healthy, nourished people. Our collective challenge is to ensure that this is what we actually do now and over the coming decade, ending harmful fisheries subsidies, ending overfishing, ending social injustice, adhering strictly to the source-to-sea ethos, and putting in place enablers for a healthy hydrological cycle. By so doing, we also help mitigate climate change through lower impact food systems and by ensuring the ocean is able to play its natural role of providing the planet's life support systems.